Welcome to the Place North podcast. I'm Dino Moutsopoulos from Place North, and I'm joined today by
Kate Healey at Informed Communications,
Lomas, Luma Marketing,
Kirsty Jolley at Placefirst.
So the reason I wanted to put this podcast on today was to talk a little bit about how the market is at the moment for us, you know, working in events and media and marketing, and wanted to find out from people who advise clients as to how to do it best and those that inform their chief execs what they should be doing as to how you're finding things. So just broadly speaking, how is it at the minute?
Busy. Oof. That sounds like everything.
Busy. It is busy. What is it exactly do you think that's happening the most, and what's causing that busyness?
It's so busy. People have got so much to say, and they're ambitious. And I also think that post-COVID, I know it's been years now, but people have been holding back and waiting for things to settle and waiting for certainty. And I think that's come. I think with economic change and political change, big and little, I think that people are ready to go and they've got stuff to say.
This is the first year that feels like we're back pre-COVID.
Yeah.
It's gone wild.
And do you think then, with obviously post-COVID and people now having a little bit more confidence and direction as to where they want to be taking their businesses, do you think that's one of the main reasons why we're seeing so much activity? Because people are coming forward. Obviously, you know, we're sitting and based in Manchester at the moment, but you know, some of these big cities they've doubled in size almost, particularly Manchester, and therefore there are more companies in the city doing different types of events to celebrate different sort of milestones, or you know, or office openings or what have you, adding to the sort of original mainstream media offering in terms of events. Do you feel that's why we're so busy as an industry at the moment, as a sector?
Yes, but for us it's also, we are rapidly trying to expand outside of just the Northwest. So we actually then have to contain the events in the Northeast, Yorkshire, the Midlands. That's kind of our target. And if you've got 4 or 5 in the Northwest on a Monday to a Friday, then you've got another 2 or 3 in the other kind of areas you want to go to. How do you spread your time? You're only one person, or we tend to put forward 3 or 4 people, but there's a core crowd of us that will go to things. How do we split that time? We can't go to everything, so we have to be really selective as to who we're trying to talk to, who the targets are in those kind of areas, what type of event is it? Are we trying to get stakeholders, local authorities, just development partners? We just got to be selective.
I think being selective is really key. I think it's about having a strategy as well and knowing who your audiences are and who really you want to target within that 12-month window. There are so many geographically sector-wide. And also that goes before you've even thought about your own corporate events as well. So, and you know, the budgets have to play a big role in this as well. So I think businesses need to look at what their budget is, how much and what the return on investment that they're going to get, because you know these events are not cheap. They're huge time investment and money. So it's about doing the best that you can do within that time frame and within the budgets that you're given.
And the ROI is different for every single event that we go to. Some could be as simple as how many relevant key partners did you meet at X. The rest could be, you know, how much profiling did we get? What content did we get? What videos came out of it? What pictures? Like, it's horses for courses, and we really struggle to kind of pick between all of them, because we'll get phone calls. We've chatted earlier, we get phone calls weekly saying, please come and sponsor whatever it may be. Put the same person forward every single time, but actually, that may not be right for the audience, that may not be right for us, and what is our output out of that? That's where we kind of struggle with being selective.
And in terms of the quality of the event that you're being offered, and what is it that's most important now in 2024, 2025? What's the most important thing that events can offer you?
A planned structure. I've been approached multiple times recently with a kind of, we would love you to come and be a partner with this. We would love someone from your organisation to talk. It could be as simple as just, we're going to put an event on about single family housing with no more details. And that's very hard. Firstly, for me to get internal buy-in. Secondly, to brief a chief exec and say, you're going to have to go on this and talk about this, but there is no plan yet. All right, there probably will be in a year's time or whenever the event happens. But just being a bit more targeted, having an understanding of who you want to get there, what they want to learn, what they actually are going to be interested in listening to, and also what the people on the panel are going to talk about. And if you come to me with a blank page saying, it's just single family housing in our respect, I have nothing to invest in. I have nothing to join into. Yeah, it's just an idea on a page, but there's no credible value for me. I can't then discuss what the ROI is because I have no idea at that stage.
I'm in the same boat, kind of weekly. Somebody is phoning, somebody emailing us, come and give us money for these events. And I come at it a bit differently than you do.
Yeah.
I want data.
Yes, you do.
I want to know reach. I want to know impact. I want to know, what kind of sentiment are you getting on social media? I want to know how many people, not how many people are on your mailing list. I want to know how many people are clicking on that event page.
Yeah, not just we're going to get X amount of attendees.
Yeah. We're going to get 100 people in the room. All right, you might get 100 people sign up.
Well,
what's the dropout rate? Generally, we're looking at 20% or 50% dropout rate. And who are they? Are these the people that I want to put my clients' brands in front of? Is this right? Not all media companies respond well to that.
Agreed.
Nobody likes being sold to, I think, as well, without and it goes back to, as you said, that blank sheet of paper and just, sign on the dotted line. And our reputation is at stake, really. If we advise our clients to go to an event that they're not going to get the return on investment, that is disappointing. And it could be down to the basics, audio, poor meals. I mean, the basics of events need to be, are so important because everybody remembers a bad meal or a bad when they couldn't hear the speakers, and it's those basics that you really need to get right because we're advising our clients to invest their money, which is it's so hard earned, and so if that fails, it's our reputation that's on the line as much as the events company, really.
And I mean, that's interesting. So aside from the basics, which one would think, would always be, delivered properly, what are the new things in 2024 that you're looking for? Obviously, Lisa, you mentioned about deep dives into data. But what is it that your clients are asking you? What is it that your managing director is asking you in terms of, is this a good event? Why should I do it? Why should I be paying for my involvement? Why should I be attending? What are those? Do they have a prerequisite as what they want out of an event?
The clients I work with are really intelligent, and that's not, they are hugely intelligent, and they want the numbers because they're going to be asked by their CFOs and their MDs. So it's really important we have those facts. So the data, as you said, Lucy, is so important. And also, the qualitative feedback as well. So what are people saying about the event? What are they saying about those people in on the panel? What they're saying about the business as well. So I think it's really important to get that messaging right as well.
Very good.
And then also, that bit that happens after the event, which is often outside of our sphere of influence. How interesting was that conversation? Did it continue outside of the room? Did those people connect in a deeper way? Did something actually happen? Were deals done? Did a project get off the ground? Did something change? Was there some kind of innovation that was born in that moment? What happened? That so what factor?
Yeah, I think it depends on what the output looks like. For Placefirst, we were kind of on a brand journey of trying to get our name and our face back out there over the last 5 years. And now that's transitioned into, actually, as you said, kind of what are the hard facts that you can take away from it? Who are you meeting? What are the relationships? What deals are done? What partnerships are formed? What contractors have you got that then you've been able to progress and actually sit and deal with as well? And we really struggle with that because I think it's just not readily available in the market. Certain people do it so much better than others. And I deal with pretty much all of the media companies and the events producers in the whole of the North. I'm sure you guys do too. Some of them you can get that information it's delivered to your inbox straight afterwards, and there's a kind of fortnightly check-in where you then come back and say, actually, this is the feedback and this is maybe how we'll improve it next year. I had a call with someone a couple of weeks ago, which was to do with one of the larger events in the country, and it was around the feedback they'd taken from the event that happened this year and what they were going to do next year to improve it. And I found that quite refreshing because I struggle to see that happen a lot in the industry where people go, we've taken your feedback, we've listened to what you said, and this is how we're going to shape it next year. And actually what you did this year, and they were really honest with me, what you did this year probably didn't work for you because you'd also done it the year before. And now we recommend that you should do this. And yes, there was still a lot of sponsorship money involved, but they'd listened to what my feedback was and then curated something and offered me something that had far more value, acknowledging that what they'd done with us before didn't work. And I found that quite refreshing for a kind of media partner.
It's a trust factor,
Yeah,
isn't it?
100%.
You trust those people to do it well.
And it's important for events to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they stay static, then, people get bored. You know, we are humans at the end of the day. You know, you're going to go to that event year in, year out. It needs to move forward as our clients do as well, and as the industry does.
It's interesting. I mean, obviously, I spend a lot of my time talking to businesses about, the events that Place North put on, other events, large events that take place outside the country that people are interested in going to, and advising what I think is worth them putting their money and time into. And I've been saying for the best part of probably 2 years now that, the old adage, cash is king. Well, I think it's now convenience is king. If you can make this a convenient, easy, straightforward, well thought out opportunity for somebody, they'll take it. Whereas, the money is always a factor. There is a budget and that's it. But can it be done quickly, efficiently, where it takes time off your desks in order to get it delivered? So I think that's something that's been certainly at the forefront of my mind when talking to people. So back to your point about sort of reputation, transparency, authenticity, all really key words, I would say, if I was wanting to push a Place North product. I'd be talking about those three things.
Do you know what I think? What's really important, I think, in this market, and is, as we're hearing, on a daily basis, is talent and recruiting and retaining the right people in your organisation. And I think events are a brilliant way of helping to reach those audiences that want to come and work, because they understand the story of the business, they understand the people behind the brand, they understand the kind of culture, and that can be achieved through an event, I think.
I also think on the flip side of that, and this is something I've probably lived through in previous roles, is allowing your existing team, if you were in charge of one, to actually have the freedom to go to the events in the first place. And I know it's a kind of cost implication in a diary and man hours and all those kind of things, but that's how particularly, I guess, the younger generation in property learn and grow. And actually, I've been in situations before where it's gone, oh no, the marketing don't need to go to that. And then you sat there and you're like, well, how will I know what to influence in the future if you're not actually allowing me to go to them in the first place? But that's applicable outside of marketing. I think it's applicable to all roles in property, actually. Yes, there's diary issues, but it's growing people's careers. It's, helping them kind of find their feet in the industry. It's exposing them to the leaders that we're all working with at a really young age. I think it's really important.
Oh, it's a very good point. I've long sort of campaigned, I suppose, with clients to send marketing and comms people to the events that they are sponsoring in order for them, because they'll probably be the ones that are checking that it's as was sold, whereas directors maybe not as completely as tuned to that as the marketeer is. And so when the feedback comes,
that is our role as a kind of collective, that we should be the ones taking that data, going back to them afterwards. But having been through the event, you can't do it if you're not there at the same time.
Yeah, indeed.
So I think Kirsty's point about this is where people learn and develop and grow. I think that's absolutely key. You don't get to the middle of your career or senior levels and suddenly have a network and suddenly know who to call. And I think that events are, the good ones, are interesting and they're fun. And this is what makes work worth doing.
Yeah.
We work so hard at the day job, the stuff that happens at our desks and in meeting rooms. And then when you're at an event with people who are like-minded or not, different-minded, that's where ideas and connections and innovations are born. Everybody needs to have access to that.
And particularly, within organisations, you're going to have some more introverted people, some more extrovert. But, for those introverted people, it's really important, like knowledge is power. Yeah. And taking them to those events and investing in them and making them grow then will give them the extra confidence to then take it forward into meetings. And so they're not only growing their network, they're also growing their knowledge base as well, which is hugely important. These jobs are really, really, within the built environment, these jobs are really, really complex, and it's really important, therefore, that these events help support their growth through, going forward as part of their on-the-job training, I suppose.
But showing people, at whatever level in their career, all the kind of adjacent stuff and how people doing the next job along in the process, how they think and what challenges they're facing, what things they're trying to solve and how they're doing it.
When you're talking about reputation, and of events, and which events would you send your team to? Which events would you recommend that your directors go to, who maybe just as an attendee? It's not all about sponsorship and exhibiting. We're starting to, so Place North obviously now 18 months in with its Yorkshire offering and its North East offering, and we're establishing our reputation over there. But having done it for 17 years in the Northwest, I'd like to think that people know what they're going to get in terms of quality when they come to a Place event. And we're now expanding what we do with a large event like MIPIM, that has a reputation all of its own for 30 odd years or 40 years, however long it's been going. What are you seeing in the market, Lisa, when you're buying event opportunities for your clients at the moment from a quality point of view?
I'm seeing a lot of promises, and disappointingly, those promises are not seen through, which causes, talking about reputation, that's my reputation on the line, because I recommended this investment and those 12 newsletter slots or whatever haven't materialised. Despite my team's best efforts, it hasn't happened. So my reputation is on the line. So when I'm recommending something to my clients, it's a really personal thing, because they trust me, and I don't get two bites at that apple. What else am I seeing? I'm seeing people are ambitious. Wow. Really ambitious. My clients are ambitious in terms of not just, I want to be on that stage speaking at that thing, but I want to make this change happen in the market. I want to kind of shove that tank around that corner.
Yeah. And this is where I think the joys of social media really feed into that in the event world, because it's the pre-bit where you're like, such and such is on the panel, that's great, it's content for your business or your clients' businesses, but also that follow-up piece where people go, oh, right, that's that person, I'll add them on LinkedIn, start those conversations. And I think LinkedIn's huge in our industry.
Yeah.
But equally, it's a very easy platform to then have those follow-up conversations and drive that. So if you've put your person on the right event, whatever it may be, roundtable, kind of panel, it doesn't matter, but if you've kind of allowed that person to have that opening and they've got this entire kind of network of people that then have access to them regardless of age, gender, whatever, then great, because you're naturally affording them a higher ROI straight away. They've got those follow-up conversations, they've got access to those. I think that's really key. The social media world has kind of changed how events are perceived as well.
We're finding as well, there's a lot of roundtables. People want to have deep conversations, a bit like this one. They want to talk properly. And in the past, you'd have the round table and that'd be it. Oh, that was nice.
Yeah,
thanks very much. Bye. But people aren't leaving the room. They want more. They want that idea, that connection that happened over the table. They want to actually do it. So we're finding we're having to create spaces for that momentum to keep going. And that's where project teams doing stuff differently are starting to ferment.
I've just booked an event for 2025 with exactly that in mind, saying we'll have that roundtable discussion, some of the key local authorities that someone else will provide for me, which is wonderful in my book because it gives me a bit more time to do my actual day job. But actually with that follow-up piece, they've gone, oh, you can actually have the room next door and continue those conversations afterwards, although you'll be off our clock. That's then down to you. You navigate that space. It's all kind of in your ownership, but you can have that time. Great.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't
get
cut off.
Then your dinner.
Yeah.
And then 6 weeks later, there's something else, a reason to bring people back together.
I think the real estate sector is so good at that anyway, and pushing the agenda when it needs to be pushed.
Yeah.
So let's assume you take on a piece of work for a client and you arrive and it's not been pre-delivered the way you wanted it. The day hasn't gone how you wanted it. What are you going to do? Are you going to allow, because of the clamouring of the size of the event or the brand or association, perceived association, will you be going back? Will you be recommending that back to the client, even though you've had a bad experience? Or are you going to?
Sometimes I have to.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to. And there will be two very different conversations that I will have. There'll be the conversation with my client about, actually, that went really well. And here's the good stuff. Here's the social echo. Here's the connections you made. Here's the content we've got. This is the views on the video. Here are your marketing metrics. Didn't we do well? And then there's another conversation going on with the events team that is not so nice. And some quite firm negotiation about whether we're actually going to pay the rest of the bill for that, because You didn't bring us any coffee, and the room was dirty. And of course, they want to sell us the same thing again in 6 or 12 months' time at an uplift. There will be no uplift because the trust is broken. I don't trust you. And I'm going to have to spend more in putting my team on it to make sure that everything that needs to be done has been done.
It adds more risk to you, doesn't it, to go back again?
Cost, pain. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm old and I'm tired. And anybody that comes and does this well and makes my life easier, bring it.
Good marketing is never just one thing. It's never one silver bullet. It's online, it's offline, it's audio, it's written work.
No, but I would echo that because I know a lot of that was kind of driven around the digital audio, kind of personal side. But what we kind of really focus on is our personalities within our business are our biggest selling point, and the relationships they make are the most important thing. So I will happily support any credible event that's been really well thought out if it gives us the opportunity to put the right people in. Our people are our brand ambassadors. They're the personalities. They can literally kind of become Placefirst. And actually, yes, we do single family build to rent, but that's not what they're selling. They're selling themselves in the moment, and it's all built on relationships and networking. And actually, I've met some incredible people in this industry in the last kind of 2 years, but equally I need the business to come along and do the same. It's not just down to me, it's down to kind of all of us as a mini army. We need to go en masse to the right targeted things, but it's all about the people. And I think what you just touched on is putting all those people in them. They're your clients, they're the people I work with in-house, but there's still the same argument there. It's about putting people in front of people regardless of kind of output, and that's what really works for us.
People buy people.
Well, people make it fun.
Well, yes.
People have the relationships, yeah.
People don't buy a brand.
No.
A brand influences their decision, but they buy people. Do I trust that person to do what they say they're going to do? Do I like them? Am I going to enjoy working with them? Do I believe that we're going to go on this journey, wherever it's going, and that the end result is going to be what we're all after? That's about people.
Yeah. Do I want to have the follow-up with that person? Do I want to sit on a panel next to that person? Is that person a little bit controversial? And actually, I know I'm going to have a really enthusiastic debate with that person. Exactly.
And is that person who's speaking, have they got any charisma?
Yes.
Or are they?
Or have they
really
been
boring?
But isn't it
to play?
But isn't it great when you advise your clients to go to an event or do some activity? When they get that deal or that letting, that is just it's just a fantastic endorsement of everything that we're trying to do. It's a great feeling when you get that feedback.
How common do you think that is from events?
I think it's more than you think, you know. Yeah.
Just because you have multiple clients. I'm sorry, deviated slightly. I'm genuinely
interested. Yeah, no, I'm saying do you know, I've you know, so Inform's grown our business really on people and connections and you know, our longest standing client, we met at MIPIM, you know, so and touch wood, still have them till this day. So yeah, absolutely, I can't underestimate the importance of events in terms of you know, business development, not only for our company but for our clients as well.
No, it's true. It's always about people, you know, impressing other people in terms of winning business, and I think that can be done in many different ways. Kirsty, you mentioned earlier about a term that in our sector is well known, but pay to play. Mm-hmm. So it's certainly becoming more and more of a thing now. It's I think historically it might have been something that was to close a deal or you know, make it easier for the client to be able to get their message across, but now it seems to be part and parcel of what you're getting in your inboxes as a done fait accompli. You know, you can speak at this if you pay X. What do we think of that?
It's not for me.
There's a reality to it that media companies need to make money in order to put on great events, and it's beholden on us as marketing people to balance that commerciality with reputation. I try and avoid ever having one of my clients on a stage talking about something with their branding behind them. I want them on that stage because they've got something to say, because they've got something new to add to the discussion, and because they're charismatic and interesting and fun and maybe a bit controversial. I don't want anybody in that audience to think that they've paid to sat there.
But equally, I was having a conversation with someone that is business development is slightly different from the marketing world, but same kind of thing. They are actively sponsoring events and panels and roundtables and all those kind of things, but have never really put a speaker on the panel. They back the event, they see the value in it, they know having the conversations, they're in the right room to have those conversations, but they don't feel the need to put the speaker on it. And that's almost where I'm starting to get to with things. Credible events are brilliant, but actually the audience are not necessarily going to listen to the same person say the same thing every single time, particularly then when a conference or an organizer would come back and say, oh, you sponsored it this year, do you want to sponsor it next year? You can have another person on the panel. Well, if I was attending an event, I wouldn't want to sit and listen to the same developer in my kind of sphere say the same thing 2 years in a row. Likewise, at a recent event, kind of our chief exec was on 3 panels, and he ended up kind of saying the same thing at every single panel, because there's only so much you can say in that moment. Your message hasn't changed because you've been doing them an hour apart.
And if you've done the marketing and the comms right, your message has got into that room before you have.
I mean, and that's a challenge, isn't it? So, I mean, from our point of view, I can tell you, certainly had this conversation with people around this table before about, clients wanting to be part of events. We understand it, but of course, because we are regional and hyper-local on certain occasions, when you're looking at the actual activity that's happening in that city or that town, there are only so many players actually doing anything. So we understand that balance. I'm very proud to say we don't put that down as a sort of written part of the marketing, is that, you can buy a speaker for this. But
I had a fascinating one that happened to me last week, and there was an award ceremony that happens in the residential build to rent area, and they charge you to enter the awards categories. Now, instantly, I understand, as we said, the sponsors of that event anyway, so a £400-500 fee to enter an awards category is quite a significant amount of money if you're then going to take a table and take guests and do all of the things that you've got to do to make that event a success. And as soon as I see that fee, I kind of close off and I go, oh, that's not kind of where I see us entering an awards category, so I will stop. But interestingly, I then got an email from the organisers saying, we've actually only had 2 entries for that category and they're both from the same company. So could you actually write as an award for that, and we'll waive the fee?
Dear me. I mean, that's the sort of thing that is being crafted by certain media firms at the moment, isn't it? This sort of unusual sort of short. You mentioned earlier, Lucy, about shortlists. They're not very short anymore.
Awards. Awards are really, really important.
Yes.
So, my professional body says I'm great, therefore I'm great. But if you have paid for that award, it loses all value.
Well, absolutely, and I think we've been quite clear at Place over the years where we sit on award ceremonies. If we wanted to do the Place Northwest Awards on the best house builder and the best contractor, and you can imagine that the room would be full. Mm. We just don't do them. We are not an authority in this area. We have supported for many years the Northwest Regional Construction Awards, which is moderated and judged by the Construction Excellence Group. That's got more veracity to it than other media firms doing awards.
Teeth. Those people on the shortlist, and it needs to be a shortlist.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Come on, judging panel. Your job is to get it down to 3 or 4. Yeah.
For a concentrated number of awards too.
Yes.
Let's not have 20, 30 awards on one
Let's
evening.
make these awards difficult to get. We want them to be worth having.
And I agree with you. I totally agree with you. But you said earlier that publishing firms need to make the books balance. And this is one really easy way that they will make the books balance, is to create lots of awards with lots of shortlist so that everybody buys a couple of tickets or maybe a table, and then there'll be some sponsors and they'll make, multiple tens of thousands.
It's very short term for you. People will do that once and then they go to a bad event where the audio was terrible, the food was meh, the awards went on and on. I was at one a few months ago, and when we put the entry in, there were 8 categories. By the time we actually got to the awards dinner, there were 29 categories, and the judging panel hadn't actually shortlisted anybody. They literally just created an award for everybody. Everybody gets.
So what's the value in that then?
Absolutely none.
Right. So
I will not be going again, and I will not advise my clients on it either. That's it.
Right.
Bridge burned.
No, fair enough. Well, I mean, we go back to one of our original points earlier, which we were talking about the pace of the media, the pace of the market, how much we've got to go to. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a culling, hasn't there, somewhere? Otherwise, we're just not going to be able to do all of what's on the table properly. So where do you think which bits of events do you think are ones that we can look to maybe move to the side whilst we concentrate on different ones? Is it conferences? Is it awards? Is it meetings? Is it corporate events? What are the events that are currently in fashion that we're thinking that's not going to last, or I'd rather see more of this in this fashion?
It really depends on the client and the sector and the geographical area, and I think it's setting out that strategy that we talked about at the start and being really ruthless, being really focused, really ruthless. Which target audiences are you going to engage with? Which areas do you want to focus on? Really prioritising those in line with your business objectives and then going for that. And, you know, you might not achieve targeting everyone, but that's okay. And that's the strategy. And again, when you get pushback or you might get inquiries from the board or, you know, whoever, you know, the MD saying, are we entering this? You've got a robust no, and this is why not, because this is the plan that we've set out. And yes, we can consider that for 2026, 27, but that's what we're doing for the next year. And that gives everybody, you know, it gives ourselves and it gives the marketing team confidence and the authority to be able to push back on that because it has been approved.
No, indeed, and obviously we don't always know in the media where the next opportunity is going to be. So, for example, you know, Place North last week announced Question Time, which is a big, high-profile event that we do every so many years. So it's not something we do all the time. Obviously, the election came round, and we had to bring that forward, and it's now something that's happening on the 5th of November. That's when I advise clients to make sure they keep some ancillary cash behind from their budget, because there will always be something good. Well, there'll always be something that comes up, and you've got to make that choice whether or not that's a useful timing opportunity. So we talked about where they are, you know, how many there are, etc. We've just announced nearly 50 events for 2025 across the North, which is a lot. I know I can see your face, Lucy, but it is a lot, and we are playing. We play our part in keeping everybody busy. I'm very acutely aware of that in a very serious point of view. Is that, you know, we are putting more activity into a market that already has a lot of activity. I feel that the quality of what we do and the brand reputation and our authenticity and transparency and all the things we mentioned earlier are enough to make ours the go-to events to go to across the North, and including things we're doing at MIPIM in March. But, you know, what has to go? You know, what do we have to do? Is it, you know, how do you advise your clients on doing stuff every 2 weeks, for example?
I advise them to choose their pond and swim in it for 2 years and then move on. Right, interesting. Tell me more. So we bounced. This year's been exhausting. We bounced from... It's only 6 months into the year. So.
No, but look how much has happened. UK Reef, housing.
We bounced from MIPIM to UK Reef to the housing conference. Now there's another housing conference in October. There's all the place stuff in between. There's so much to mention. Literally, we bounced from one thing to another, to another, to another. And never mind my energy levels, my clients are tired. They're not getting any work done. So they've kept going and going and going. And I bet yours are the same. They've kept going and going and going post-COVID for kind of 3 years now. And they're at the point of, all right, I don't want to do this again next year. I want to actually make it to my child's sports day. I want to go to the gym, maybe. It's starting to affect everybody's health, this. So they are, as you said, Kate, making quite ruthless decisions. This one isn't working for me. I'm not going to do it. And everybody goes, oh, wow, thank you. And there's just a bit of breathing space where people can actually go and do some work. And all the leads and ideas and exciting stuff they've got from the previous one, they've got time to do something with it. Because I think right now people are finding that they're coming back from MIPIM with a head full and a massive to-do list, and they've not got through it, they've not even tackled it when it's time for UK Reef. And it's the same with the housing conference. So anything in between is really struggling. So it has to be divide and conquer. All right, you're going to do the massive conferences, and you're going to step into the place calendar, and you're going to work that one and gather that information.
Yeah, you should reflect as well on the last 12 months and what worked and what didn't. I think, review all that data that we talked about, bring that into the session and really analyse and say, just because we've always done it, should we keep doing it, or actually should we mix things up and do less things in a better way? I think, we shouldn't be afraid to say what worked and what didn't.
Yeah, exactly that. We take the reflection period. So if we will go to an event, and there's probably, I guess, with our team specifically, we are the development team, myself, the marketing colleagues, our chief exec tend to be the same kind of crowd that will go to events. But it's a case of providing a list, and we tend to kind of take that quarterly at the minute in terms of diaries and actioning who's going to what, and being strategic and saying, oh well, that person could be in that area at that time, they can go to that. Great. Do we need to have a presence of that? No, not really. It's not really that relevant. Great. Bin it off. Who's got the time? Who's got kind of the schedule? Who's got the responsibilities that can fit into all of that around childcare and animals and all the rest of it? And actually kind of then saying, hang on, how do we look as a whole across a quarter? Are we at the right things? Are we having the right conversations? If we're not, let's reflect on that and look at that for the next 3 to 6 months. We're already booked for a lot of things a year in advance, so they're kind of taken care of. But in terms of the attendees of things, we'll sit down, myself and a colleague will do it kind of on a fortnightly basis and say, oh, well, you went to that, I went to this, how was it? Do we think there's a value in it for next year? What maybe is the feedback we'd provide to whoever is running it? And that's various media organisations, but you're right, it's a reflection piece and kind of reviewing strategy and seeing the value and taking stock for a second, which we don't have time to do, but we're trying, and actually working out then how you inform that going forward.
It's really interesting. I mean, I imagine some of our listeners and viewers, when they watch and listen to this, will, if they're chief execs or MDs and whatnot, will find that interesting. I've got a question for you then, Kirsty, in terms of talking through the return on that event. Is it a quarterly conversation for you, or
It can vary. It depends. We will try and schedule larger sponsorships, obviously 6 to 12 months in advance, smaller sponsorships kind of on an ad hoc basis. And that's mainly partly because I'm new into the role and I've had to kind of re-strategize a few things. But I think we just like to reflect quarterly in terms of a reporting structure. So again, then you've got the data that's kind of active and current and relevant in that quarter.
And what marks success there then? So because we'll put this podcast out, It'll get X amount of listens and views in the first few days, then it'll have more after a couple of weeks, and then after, it's got some longevity to it. When is it successful, sort of underlined, gone tick, that's been brilliant?
Again, I think that depends on the partner that you're working with. I think you guys are very good at consistently pushing some of your content back out after a couple of weeks, and then sometimes after months when they've still got relevance. I think certain people will kind of go, oh, well, we filmed that, we'll put it out once on our channels and that's a tick box job done. And that's where it changes for me, and that's where I'm quite selective on who I work with on certain types of outputs, because if you're not going to get that data and you can't reflect on it, then you can't report on it, and then you can't go back and say, actually, that was really worthwhile.
So that was the traditional challenge that printed magazines had. Once the thing was printed and it went through the letterbox, that was the end of it, and you could never really measure anything.
That media audit is hugely important. Understanding the reach, the data, and the more sophisticated commercial side of the publications will be able to provide you that, in a flash, whereas, other publications can be a bit slower and might not have that data that you really need to justify the expenditure and demonstrate success.
Yeah, and on expenditure, I mean, it's a bit of a nitty-gritty point, but it's at the nub of everything, we've all got to do. Costs. They make a decision pretty easy sometimes, What are you seeing in the market at the moment around costs? I mean, we've tried to keep our costs the same. I think our sponsorship of events has been the same for the last 2 or 3 years, which, given the cost of living and everything else, we were pretty proud of, But what you mentioned, Kirsty, earlier, small versus big sponsorship. You're talking about what are you seeing?
I've had an experience recently. I think Lucy knows this because I've kind of had this conversation with her. But Placefirst have sponsored an event in the past, and it would be over, and there was no data, no stats, no nothing to report. And at that point, it was literally 3 days after the event, the invoice comes through to sponsor it next year, with no conversation around sponsoring it next year. It was this automated kind of thing where it's like, oh, well, you've done it once, you'll probably do it again. Well, that would have been fine if firstly we'd found the value in it, but I said that's since changed and we were actually going to focus on something else. But also it had gone up $2,500 for no reason. The event was exactly the same, but the cost had gone up $2,500 for
I
nothing.
mean, there's two things there, though. You just said it would have been fine. So you're fine with somebody sending an invoice to you for an event in the future without any conversation?
No, okay, yeah, fair enough. The journey I would have gone through on that is obviously then booking the conversation to revisit and feedback on the event and kind of understand the metrics and kind of shape it for next year, which actually I've done, and then we've said we've changed it, and the cost has come down again because that conversation was negotiable, it turned out.
But it's very, I mean, it's poor practice.
Poor practice.
In you know, the bare bones of that is that the price that they. I mean, we very, very rarely discount, as you all know, and I just think you're not discounting on quality. So if you send something to somebody for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,000, and you sell it to them for 4,
yeah,
it was never 9 or 10,000.
And the problem with this industry that we all know and love is it's very small and people talk. And actually, in a marketing sense, all it would take was for me to ring up Lucy or Kate and go, we just had an invoice from someone for this because it's this much more than it was last year. Where are you at with that? Because we all go as kind of in-house or clients. And actually, if the same conversation is, all our prices have gone up with no justification, then we can't kind of back that quite so easily because what's the added value? What am I getting for my extra money? Not much.
And we do talk to each other.
Yeah, we do. We actually do talk.
We do.
So
And we all get on.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that if you think about events and you think about marketing, because they're the most costly of all of the marketing events, aren't they, by and large? And if you think that something's going to cost you X to get in front of 50 to 100 people, I always explain to people, where else is that going to be seen? Where else is your brand going to be seen? Where is the voice or the photos or the write-up of that individual going to be seen?
What would you pay to get in front of it?
Well, no, I was about to say sometimes though with those bigger events, the thing that I would consider in that is what the pull is for different audiences. Because I think Northwest events are great, but they pull very similar crowds and very similar people. So actually some of those bigger events for us specifically open up a lot more opportunities to pull in a different crowd. And actually there's value in that. And I said then you need the metrics afterwards to understand who those people are. But it's an opportunity and a door open to an audience that we wouldn't necessarily reach without that. So there is a kind of juggling between the two.
And that's the balance between marketing and business development, because if you have somebody from your organisation in the room of 50 people and they can meet 10 or 12 individual people that they are very, very keen to meet, then they will go away and do business. From a marketing comms point of view, if Place North can put it on 3 websites and it's read by 400,000 people, that's better marketing than sponsoring one thing in a room and saying, I've done my marketing job. You might have done a good BD job by putting somebody in the room to be able to talk to people, but the reach is different digitally. So cost to value on that is interesting, I find.
And with the sponsorship thing, working in partnership with a media organisation brings in reach and people that we couldn't do. That's why we do it. Because, me and my team, we can put on a round table, is it? Yeah, of course we can. We can put on a panel discussion. Yeah, great. What we can't do is bring in some of that audience.
It's that added value that you don't get to necessarily stand alone.
No, exactly that we said earlier, right? I will happily kind of put some money to sponsorship events that are breakfast, lunches, kind of curated drinks events that aren't just a turn-up free bar. But on the basis that sometimes we're kind of partnering with you on some of the events that we're sponsoring next year, but also you can fill the room with the right people for us, and we don't have that reach. And that's where the partnership element really does work, and there's strength in that and value in that for us.
So that's the thing with clients as well, isn't it? It's not just the event itself, it's all the cost of going out there and, a huge investment with MIPIM. So you've got to make sure it works for you and getting all those additional stats by being a partner as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's a good segue into, partnership working, because we because of our 12-month, which is effectively a 16-month forward view of conferences and events that we do, that has always helped us since we introduced that 10 years ago. It become the sort of stable of people's sort of, where do I look to find out what's going on? We've now broadened that, and I think some of our viewers and listeners will know that we now do a lot more work at MIPIM, which is obviously a big focus point in the year, and a lot of expense in terms of attending, being there, time out the office, branding, costs, events, all of it. So, I think working with people 12 months a year, which we've put in place with our partnerships, our Place partnerships, which seem to be going very, very well. I think it's back to that convenience is king. Can I plan it out? Can I work with somebody? Can I put it off my desk onto theirs and know that it's going to get done? I think these are sorts of simple things that,
It's not simple. It's complex, and there's a lot. So I'm right now planning 2025 for our clients. I've got 14 people 14 companies needs an ambitions to distill and gathering information from all sorts of places about what's going to happen. But having that 12, 18-month forward plan is gold. I'm a marketer. I'm a strategist. I think years ahead. I don't think 3 months or 6 months ahead. That's not enough for horizon for me. And if you're looking for people to invest thousands of pounds, you don't come to them 3 months before, because those budget decisions were made a year and a half ago. And yeah, we keep a bit back for the unexpected. But then that kind of working in partnership with people. So I know what my clients need to achieve. Not quite sure how we're going to do it. And that's the partnership angle of team and I've got an idea, or we need to get kind of this message in front of those people. What's the best way to do it? Discuss.
Yeah, partnerships with objectives, something to achieve.
And getting the right people around the table.
Indeed, which is exactly what we've done today. So thank you very much. I think that's all we have time for today. So thank you very much for joining us today and having such an insightful conversation about what is a very busy part of the market. Thank you very much, Kate, Lucy, Kirsty. Thanks for joining.